So how are you?
Can you ask her for more written reviews? I need to write. I have things to read already. You know? Thank you. Sure. You already started? Till last week.
Yeah, I already started.
Yes. She
I'm already
saw
on.
the future and she already fulfilled it.
I'm a Navi. This is last week.
Okay, so
This week. I'm like so ahead already.
this is Allison, it's here,
Okay.
Shirley,
Sorry.
here, and Petra, here, Lee, here, Kana,
Hello.
oh, and Simcha is on Zoom, and Shira is not
Shira's in the class.
in the class. Okay, we'll have to find out.
Cheers, what? The other class.
So, finishing off our last chapter, which was to kotzer, which is removing something from its place of growth. So, we discussed this last week. Making use of a tree and the extension of the tree are both considered as if a part of the tree. And therefore, putting a ladder against the tree would be forbidden. Using the tree itself, putting full weight on the tree is forbidden. The taking something off that is on the tree cannot be done, which would include if there's something on a branch, taking a jacket off a branch that was on before Shabbos cannot be done. Even if something is already on the branch before Shabbos, a basket, you cannot take anything in or out. Making use of the basket cannot be done. If it's twice removed, then it could be done. And we gave the example of a hook that's on before Shabbos, so that would be once removed. And if there's something attached to the hook, whether it's a swing, whether it's a hammock, so that would be permissible. Sitting on a tree trunk that has been cut. So if it is a log that is not attached to the ground, then you can use it as your seat. If it is attached to the ground, so whatever is more than an amma, more than 4 tvachim, more than 4 handbreadths, is considered already part of the tree itself. Anything that's lower is considered the ground. So you are permitted to sit on the ground, allowed to sit on the grass. You don't handle the grass, the twig, the flowers that you can't handle because they are muktzah. But you could sit on the grass. And if it is a tree trunk that is lower than the 4 handbreadths, which would be about 9 inches. If it's lower than 9 inches, it's not part of the ground. If it's higher than that, then you cannot make use of a tree. It's considered like a tree. Now, walking in the grass, and you walked across a field, you come to after you go out of the field, you see that there is grass attached to your sandals, your shoes. Was a transgression done? The fact that the grass was attached to the ground and you caused it to become not attached. Was there an issue? You walked across a field, there was grass, come to the end of the field, you look at your shoes, look at your sandals, you see there's grass all attached to it that was ripped out while you were walking. Is there an issue with that? Should you not have walked there to begin with? Let's put it that way.
No, I think it's more.
So the fact that you are walking in a normal way, it's not in grass that is tangled. You know, when you have these weeds that are tangled in together, you're going through brush, but you know that you have to break your way through. That cannot be done because you know you're breaking your way through the growth. However, if it's normal, where you could walk, it's not definitely that the grass is going to be uprooted. Again, your intention is not to uproot the grass. It's not something that is definite for every step that you take. So in that case, you are permitted to walk across the field. If grass is disattached, is ripped out because of your walking, so it's not an issue because you did it in a permissible way. If, however, it's all brush, we have to break your way through where you know for sure you're going to be uprooting the tall grass, then you cannot walk through that area. But if it's under normal circumstances, you do not have to be concerned as far as grass that is being uprooted. Okay. We also spoke about anything that was growing when Shabbos began and it fell off the tree during Shabbos. It's still muktzah because we go according to was it usable when Shabbos began? Since when Shabbos began, it was still attached to the tree. You were not able to eat of that fruit because it is attached to the tree and it would be malacha to remove it. So even if it fell off during Shabbos, so you're not allowed, it is muktzah for the rest of Shabbos. Any questions on this chapter? Okay, so we go on to the next one. So we have now the process of growing and gathering until we come to the final product, which is going to be our herbs that are going to be used for dye or the wheat that is going to be used for baking bread. So the next part is, so we had the preparing the ground, which is plowing, then we had the planting, then we had the removal from its place of growth, and now comes the next step, which is gathering. In Hebrew, it is ma'amer, which is to gather. With an ayin, me'amer. So normally, the process would be, after you've done the harvest, you've cut or removed the fruits or vegetables, what you do is gather them together so the wind doesn't blow it away, it's not scattered over the place, and then you're going to transport it to its next step, which is going to be processed further. If it comes to wheat, so you gather the wheat, and then it's going to be threshed. The wheat has shells. In order to have the grain, which we want to use to make flour, so we have to remove the shells. That is disha, Dutch, threshing, removing the shell from its enclosure. Then it's going to go through another process. It's going to be, all the dirt is going to be removed, which is borer. It's going to be different steps until it's going to be ground, which is tochein, techinam, grinding, making the flour. So right now we have, it's in the field, it's been harvested, and now we are going to gather it together. When it comes to wheat, they usually would make bundles out of it. So gathering or bundling, ma'amer, gathering it together. If it's fruit, what would you do with the fruit? Put them in containers. Or if it's a farmer who's gathering the apples, he would put them in a basket. So these steps is a Torah prohibition, which is another step in processing the food. So taking two items, that's called gathering. One item is not gathering, that's taking an item. So therefore, if there is a fruit that you know that fell before Shabbos, so it's not muktzah, so you can take the fruit. Since you're taking one, you're not gathering it, taking one and making use of it. However, gathering more than two things together is the malacha if it's in its place of growth. So what does that mean? If you are gathering it together in your house, that's not the malacha. We'll see if there's a rabbinic prohibition or not. But meanwhile, as far as this is concerned, from the malacha is in its place of growth or in its normal way of how it's being processed. So is anyone familiar with figs that are put on a twig? They used to have that. I don't know if they still have that. They used to have the figs that come from Turkey and Greece. They would have like a making like a necklace out of the, is anybody familiar with that? Everyone now comes now. At one time it was very popular, maybe because they stopped bringing them in here, I don't know, but at one time it was very popular. You would have a necklace of figs. So they would like put through, just like you have pearls, you put it through the twig, and then you would pull the figs from the twig. Right now, everything is put in cellophane. I guess that's the way it's being sold. But doing that process of gathering together the figs, which would be not done in the field, that was done already in the factory. So doing the next process of bringing them together, which would be putting them through making the fig necklaces, or they used to make also these fig blocks. They would take the figs and then press them together until they got a block. And just like you have cheese, where you cut these blocks of cheese, so they do the same thing with figs. It was a popular food, it was cheap, and that's what people would eat. They would sort of slice it. But first they would make it into blocks. So making the blocks on Shabbos, gathering them together, that would be a malacha, a Torah prohibition, even though it's being not done in the field, but rather in the factory. But the fact that it is being, that its normal way of process of putting them together, that would be the Torah prohibition. So look on page 99. The Torah prohibition, the Av Malacha, the actual gathering of plants on their place of growth, which would include the grain, which would be tying them together, the fruit, putting them in a basket, firewood, straw and hay for animals. And does anyone do the leaves, putting them into these bags? Anyone, or burning leaves? Anyone have any? No, anyone with a yard that they have trees and you have leaves falling down. So this is the time that during this time of year, people will gather the leaves and put them into sacks. Right now they have the big plastic bags. So doing that on Shabbos is the malacha of gathering. It's the place of growth. The trees are outdoors. You're gathering together the leaves, putting them into bags. That would be a Torah prohibition. So it's not only foods that would be included in this. This would be the same also when it comes to anything that grows from the ground. So this is something, the Torah prohibition is something that grows from the ground. So it would be the leaves. Same thing, have twigs. People are gathering together for firewood, where they would gather the twigs together, or maybe tie it together.
But it's not in the ground.
But the tree, originally the twigs were from a tree that grows from the ground. So it's considered growing from the ground, whether it is directly the tree itself, or the leaves that come from the tree, or the branches that come from the tree. So that is considered.
If you take both fruits and like put all the fruits together and put it on the table for Shabbos.
So right now we're speaking on the place where it grows, in the orchard, in the garden. We're speaking about the vegetables, gathering together in the garden, gathering the fruits in the orchard. That's when it's a Torah prohibition. And only when it's in its original form. If it changes its form, it would not be included in this halacha. So let's take, for instance, we speak about the trees. Anything that grows from the tree would go into this category. What happens, it grows from the tree, but it changes its form. So let's take an example. You have wooden blocks. Yes, wooden blocks, toys. You have the ones that have the alphabet on them, the aleph-based blocks. You have wooden blocks that are made for toys, building blocks. So if it does not attach one to another strongly, or just pile it one on top of the other, you have the children that could play with these blocks, even though they're making little buildings or whatever it is, but it's not meant to last. It's meant as a toy. So then that would not. So now we speak about the blocks. What about gathering these blocks outdoors in the garden where the trees grow? Are they allowed or not? They are wood, but they're not the same form as they were originally. Now they are toys. Now they are blocks. So even if it is now being gathered in the place where the trees grow, that is permissible because they do not go into the category of produce that is being processed from its place of growth to the next step where it's going to be used. So the change in form is not included in this halacha. So yes.
Can kids play with Lego?
Lego,
Because that.
they have, so that becomes something that is debatable. There are different opinions about it. When you have the ones that are, there's another name that, besides Lego, there's another toy, there's a knockoff of the Lego that is not as strong, and usually kids will not leave it as making their whole presentations of whatever they do to build a city or build the people or whatever it is, where sometimes it is something that they put so many hours into it, they're not going to take it apart. But these were meant to begin with, they're not as strong, they're not left, it's a toy that you play, and after you finish, you take it apart and put it into the box. So those toys for sure are permissible. Same thing as you have the Lincoln logs. I don't know if they're still, they used to have these logs that you put, they're cut out, you put one on top of the other. So these things are permissible. When it comes to Lego, there are those who are saying that originally it's not meant to be a lasting thing. It's not meant to be built. It's meant also as a toy where after you finish playing with it, you take it apart. And others say no. Some of them are more permanent. So that's something that.
What about puzzles?
Puzzles. Okay, we'll come to children's toys when we come to that. If it's made out of wood, you have the children's puzzles, are the big puzzles that you just put,
So if a kid finds a branch, it's
muktzah,
and stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So so even if the branch fell off the tree before Shabbos, it's still muktzah, could not be handled because it's not. It goes into a category. It has to be as category. It's a vessel. It's something that was designated for a certain use. But the rocks, the branches, leaves, all of these are muktzah because they are not as they go into the category of things that are not vessels, and therefore they cannot be handled.
Oh.
So we'll have
no branches, rocks, leaves.
So unless we go now again, now you have these. You made a bouquet of leaves. They're very colorful leaves. You put them together, and now you bring them into the house. So now this is a bouquet.
Change its form.
It changes its form, and now it's not now just wild branches, wild grass, wild leaves, but rather it's now made into a vessel, which is a bouquet. And it's the word vessel is a very, very wide area. A bouquet is called a vessel. It's not a vessel, but it's a bouquet. It now became an entity for itself. It's not just separate flowers. Now it became like a.
So what do you mean by vessel?
Well, a vessel is something that is designated for a certain use.
Right.
And it's something that is normally made for a certain use. So in other words, what happens if you have a rock is not a vessel. What happens if you take the rock and you want to use it as a paperweight? But it's still a rock. Unless you do something to the rock that indicates that this is a paperweight, you have to paint it, make a smiley face out of it or something of that sort, where it's no longer a plain rock, it's now a vessel, which is now your paperweight. It's going to weigh down your papers, so they don't fly away. So we are able to designate something in a way that it's recognizable, that it's no longer a rock, but rather it is a paperweight. So these are the Amalacha is actually gathering plants, place of their growth. The Tolda would be compressing fruit, even if it's not in its place of growth. We sort about the blocks, crushed figs, holes in the figs, or runs a thread through them. So all of this is included in this malacha. Rabbinic prohibition is other gathering things that do not grow in the ground. So what they put into that category would be gathering salt from the salt mines and putting them into baskets. So we're not familiar with that, so it doesn't apply to us. But salt taken from its place of production, putting that into containers would be a rabbinic, even though it doesn't grow from the ground, but it is in the ground. Another rabbinic prohibition would be gathering eggs. Anyone have the chicken coop? No one's familiar with that. So we have so the eggs that are laid on Shabbos are muktzah, but the ones that are from before Shabbos are not muktzah, and therefore you could make use of the eggs.
But how do you know?
So there would be, guess what? So it would be. We assume that if everyone gathers the eggs every day and you didn't see it yesterday, then it was from Shabbos. That would be the assumption. But if the person was lazy and he knows that he did not gather the eggs from yesterday, then they're not muktzah. Now, what would you do with raw eggs? At one time, people ate raw eggs. Now, people are very concerned about it. So, but at one time, raw egg was something that you would have raw, or put it into some drink with a raw egg. You just the yolk, beat it up. People any? No one uses egg yolks or drinks. With the nutmeg, used to have the Europeans. Anyone here European? European. Google, there we go. Google, that's where we go. That's it. That's right. So you have the. You take the. Okay, so you're familiar with the raw egg. But no one has, that used to do, the grandma used to do that. Okay, so you take the egg yolk, and you take the egg yolk, and you have either honey or sugar, and you make it very, very strong, and then you add hot water to it, and it's good for people who have a sore throat or anything else that's a remedy for it.
Have you tried this?
Oh, sure. Not anymore, but I did grow up on that, so I come from.
And it helps, it actually helps with like.
Yes, it's a throat, yes. It's a throat soother, yes, I come from Russian background. So that's my parents, Russian, so.
But why we can't have eggs that were
They say that it's, it could be, no, halach, it's fine.
to have the egg, no, that when the chicken.
Because again, that's a rabbinic, that was a rabbinic prohibition.
But why?
Why? Because the idea of gathering something from its place of where it's produced, where it comes from, just like you have the vegetables coming from the garden or the fruits coming from an orchard. So people will equate the eggs in the same category. You come and get every day, you come and you get, just like you come get fruit every day from your trees, if you have that garden. If you grow tomatoes, cucumbers, every day you go out to the garden, you see what's there, you pick it, you gather it in. Anyone have these?
So you can only not gather eggs if you produce them at home?
If it was
If you.
from its place from the chicken coop, only the chicken coop.
Oh, so we could.
Oh, yes, only from the chicken coop. In other words, from its place where it is, just like we have the field where the vegetables grow, the orchard where the trees grow. So the Rabbanan put also not to go on Shabbos morning and go to the chicken coop and take all the eggs that were produced that day. But in your house,
What was the, like, why did they?
Because in one's mind, they sort of put it together that just like you have every day, you would go out to the garden and get your tomatoes and cucumbers. So if you go every day and you get your eggs, so what's the difference between getting the eggs and getting a nice tomato from your garden that maybe fell off on Shabbos? So you put it both together, and it might lead to some people. It's sort of we don't have the egg farms, so it's not our mentality. But it seems that the mentality of people are that it's sort of they would equate it, they would put it in the same category. Something that is being produced on Shabbos and being gathered on Shabbos should not be done. Now, so the prohibition is in its place of growth. The Torah prohibition would be that if you gather the fruits and vegetables in the field where they grew, whether it's an orchard for the apples, or whether it is a field, a garden for your vegetables, all of this, gathering it together, even though they were not muktzah because they were disattached from before Shabbos, gathering them together is the malacha of ma'amir. So that would be the Torah prohibition. If, however, it's not being gathered in the place where it actually grew, so then there is no Torah prohibition. It's only in the place of growth. It's a part of production. So from the Torah perspective, if it is a yard, so let's take two situations. One situation is you have a basket of apples in your orchard, and the basket tipped over and all the fruit fell out. Could you put them back into the basket? So rabbinically, no, because it's a place of growth. Even though it's been already gathered once before, but even doing it a second time, it's put that in the same category.
Rabbinically?
Rabbinically, the second time. The second time.
Oh.
Now, what happens if you have now the same situation in a yard, not the place of growth? You took the basket before Shabbos, you have it in the yard, freshly picked apples, and then the basket tips over in your yard. So again, Torah, there's no Torah prohibition. The question now is, what's the rabbinic prohibition? So if it tipped over and everything is still intact, everything is still in the same pile, it's not scattered, you're not gathering it, you're just replacing it. So then there is no rabbinic prohibition, because you're not gathering something. That gathering seems to be something that's spread out, and you're gathering it together. Here, it's all in one pile, taking the pile and putting it back into the basket, so rabbinically you are permitted to do so. If, however, it's scattered over the yard, it's tipped over and it went all over the yard, so rabbinically, even though it's not its place of growth, but it is scattered in a place in a field. So therefore, bringing it together would be a rabbinic.
So rabbinically, you're not allowed to gather, even if it's not in the place of
growth, right? But it's out, but it's in the field. It's in a yard.
Right.
So then it's similar to the orchard. It's similar. It's outdoors. So then put that together.
So only if it's,
It's
for example, if it's in the house.
It's in the house. So here we have another. So as far as gathering is concerned, it does not apply. Question is, is it extra toil that is not needed? So if you want your house to be neat, so then you're allowed to make your house neat, so that you can put everything away. Same thing would be with toys that are scattered all over, so that would not apply. You could take the toys, put them all away. You don't put them into different categories, which we're going to speak about Borer, but we are going to take all the things that are scattered all over the place, the toys that are scattered, you can put them away. Produce that are scattered, so it matters why you're putting it away. If it's done for neatness, then that would be fine. Okay. Any questions on this? So if a basket of fruit, so you have your fruit basket, your fruit bowl that's on the table, the bowl falls over, the fruits are all over the table, there is no issue of putting them back into the fruit bowl. It's indoors, it's on the table, it's not considered really scattered, so you put it back. Now the next malacha. So now we have the grain has been gathered, tied into bundles. Now it's going to be taken to process the next part. Next part is all of the grain, the wheat kernels are in shells. You have the shell so now you have to get the wheat kernel out of the shell. So that's a method that's called threshing. Now threshing itself has many different ways of how to do it. Now, did anyone come in contact with these wheat kernels that are still in their shells? So putting a little pressure, the grain, the kernel shoots out. So if you just press it, it will shoot across the room. It's like, anyone familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the, so the method that was done different ways of how they removed it. But right now, everything is done by the tractors. There's a machine that's called a combine. It does the cutting and the threshing and the cleaning, and you get at the end of the combine, you get a sack full of clean wheat kernels. But the way it was normally done was either it was done by hand, so you had this heavy something that's called a flail. It was had a handle and it had a heavy item at the end, and you beat the grain, and since you're putting on pressure, the grain would come out of the shell. Or they would do the threshing, like we have the picture here. You would attach a threshing board to a cow, ox, and the threshing board has underneath very sharp protrusions coming out, like little knives. And you drive across the wheat in their shell, and that would cut across, all of the shell would come out, all the wheat would come out of the shell. So this is the Torah prohibition, where you have the extraction of something that is grown from its covering, with the purpose of storing it. It's a part of production. So that would include the all the different grains. Then you have you have all the different legumes. You have the peas in the pod. So removing the peas from the pod would go into this category of threshing, removing what's inside for its to extract the peas that are inside the shell.
Oh, so if you're eating.
Oh, no, that's for production, but put away for later use. You're saying all of this is being done for later use. Then we have in the same category, over here we have something that's enclosed in something else, where it could be extracted by pressure or removing it from its shell. Then you have a different category that the shell is attached to the fruit. Removing that would be a Torah prohibition, a part of this malacha. So you have one example would be the grain. Another example would be fruit and vegetables that have a shell on them that are peeled. That's called mefarek, breaking apart, taking out that which is enclosed, where they are attached very strongly. So peeling a banana, peeling an orange, peeling a grapefruit, peeling them for later use goes into this category, a Torah prohibition. So we have disha, which is extracting something by pressure. Then we have mefarek, taking something that's enclosed, which is a shell. That would include shelling the nuts for later use, removing the shell or the peel for later use. That would also include when it comes to the garlic. So all of these for later use is a total prohibition.
Later use.
For later use. For the use.
You're not later use, you're gonna eat it after.
It's gonna be, so how late, so later would be if it's not being eaten now. So
you couldn't
so
use garlic in your salad?
So now we have, so let's now take the different situations. Let's use our garlic as an example. The garlic has two shells. One is an outer shell, and inside they have the what do they call those? Each one little section that has a name to it. Cloves. So you have the garlic shell, that is the outer shell, and then you have the cloves that have their own shell. Now, why that means the session is over? Wait, a question? Question? Was there? Okay. So you have now The outer shell is not needed to keep the cloves fresh. The cloves have a shell that are there because you want them there until you're ready to use them. That is to keep the clove fresh. So removing the most outer one is not a part of eating. That's a part of production. That cannot be done on Shabbos at all. The same would also be, you have, does anyone know how the walnuts grow? How are they attached to the tree? If you look at the walnut, there is no stem. So how are the walnuts, how are they attached to the tree? Anyone have any idea?
Don't they have like a big outer shell?
There we are. There's another shell that we don't see. By the time it comes to us, we don't have the original shell, which has the stem that is attached to the tree. So removing that most outer one, that is a malacha. That cannot be done because it's not a part of the eating process. That's a part of production. The reason why they take it off is because they're going to now remove all that most outer shell that has the stem attached to the tree. That is done in order to produce these walnuts, in order to have its later stage that's going to be used as we get them commercially. So removing that most outer one, that is always a malacha. So what could you do if you have the garlic and you did not? So what you should be doing is if you are going to be using garlic on Shabbos, you should take off the most outer one that you take off before Shabbos. What happens if you didn't? How could you get how do you get the garlic? So you do is you would slice through it without removing that outer shell. The outer shell would still remain. What you do, you're going to cut through that most outer shell. You're not going to remove the shell, you're going to leave it still intact. What you're going to do is take out from inside, you'll take out the clove. You understand what I'm saying? Huh? So you're not going to, when you have now a head of garlic on Shabbos, you didn't read, so what we're learning now in class is before Shabbos, you're going to be using this garlic head, remove that most outer one because that is useless. It's not, the garlic is going to stay as fresh as it is with that outer shell. Without that outer shell, it's not needed. Now you have the inner clove that you want the shell to be until you're ready to use it, so that you do not have to remove before Shabbos, that you leave. When you're ready to use it, which we're going to be learning about, how early could you remove that shell and make your salad, that we're going to be learning about in our next session, tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to learn how to use the garlic for a
You
salad.
can crack nuts on Shabbos? Crack the nuts.
Crack the nuts. So we're going to be speaking about the halachic answer and also what's recommended. Okay, the Rebbe recommends to do that before Shabbos because there are too many issues that might happen. Even though halachically you are permitted to crack nuts on Shabbos, you're allowed to even do it with a hammer. Halachically. Okay. Halachically. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll be having Hilchos Shabbos all week. What halachas were you learning before last week? What was?
We're going through the Cheshvan from our.
So where are
We're
you?
doing like
So morning. Okay. Good. Okay. At one point Okay. Please read the next chapter. Please read the next chapter so we'll be able to move along. You'll have the information available. We'll just move more of a discussion.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Ja, gut, wir sind voraus und erklärt. Actually, yeah, I actually, everything that you say makes sense to me. Okay, good. Wait, I have to write something before I forget. Wait, I have to tell you something before I forget. I will tell Hannah 2 things. Oh,
This is more.
so what? Do you remember 2 things? I remember just
one.
When the other one was 70.
Tell me.
Okay, I just wanted to say about Shidduchim, like, you remember how,
Oh.
Mrs. Cohen said,
Right.
Mrs. Cohen said that she knew the Shidduch for her son. Were you here? And she was just waiting for it for like a year. You know what I'm saying? So this saying, like, a good shadchan will also like know that, okay, that maybe they're Shidduch, but they will even wait till the 11th Shua. But they'll have it in mind for how, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, again, I'm not saying, like, having a resume doesn't mean that it just means that they can look for it, doesn't mean even that they didn't even introduce it to you. No. Doesn't mean anything.
With the Russian ladies, it means a lot.
Okay, so those are the Russian ladies. I'm just saying, anyways.
No, I get what you're saying.
Okay, what's the other? What's the
No, why
I
is
did
that?
wanted to say something, but I forgot.
She said it before.
Okay, I'll go right. Okay. I forgot.